For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Israeli airstrikes killed 20 Palestinians in central Gaza, including 6 children and 3 women, some of them inside an Israeli-declared safe zone today. The strikes come as U.S., Egyptian, Qatari, and Israeli officials gather in Doha for ceasefire and hostage release talks. Meanwhile, a panel of United Nations experts say famine has spread across the Gaza Strip and are accusing Israel of carrying out a targeted starvation campaign. Tariq Jasarevic is a spokesperson for the WHO, World Health Organization.
34 people have died of malnutrition and dehydration so far. And then Kamal Adwan Hospital alone, 60 cases of severe acute malnutrition were detected last week.
He warns malnutrition weakens the immune system, as destroyed sanitation infrastructure in Gaza has led to the spread of disease. This as Israel ramps up strikes in Gaza, bombing 4 United Nations-run schools in the last 4 days, killing dozens of Palestinians, mostly women and children, according to eyewitnesses. The latest strikes Tuesday killed 31 Palestinians near Khan Yunis and wounded some 50 others. It was condemned by the United Nations. In the U.S., President Joe Biden's welcomed heads of state from dozens of European nations for NATO's 75th anniversary in Washington, D.C. Christopher Martinez reports.
President Joe Biden praised NATO as the single greatest defensive alliance in the world, crediting it with preventing war, protecting democracy, and defending against aggression. And he boasted of a growing NATO, with Finland and Sweden joining, and more member nations increasing their military spending.
It's good that we're stronger than ever, because this moment in history calls for our collective strength. Autocrats want to overturn global order, which is by and large kept for nearly 80 years and counting. Terrorist groups continue to plot evil schemes to cause mayhem and chaos and suffering.
In particular, Biden praised NATO for rising to the defense of Ukraine against the Russian invasion.
And we know Putin won't stop at Ukraine, but make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
NATO critics from around the world gathered in Washington, D.C. for a 2-day summit called No to NATO, Yes to Peace. Shin Kim is with the Democratic Socialists of America's International Committee.
So the heads of state of 32 NATO countries are coming to Washington, D.C. to tell us about the warmongering that they're going to be doing in the next years. And we are here to say no.
Speakers blasted NATO for military interventions in Yugoslavia, Libya, and Afghanistan, and for what they describe as escalating the war in Ukraine. I'm Christopher Martinez.
Democrats say they'll bring up legislation to counter the recent Supreme Court ruling granting presidents broad immunity from prosecution. Catherine Carley reports.
We're doing this because we believe that in America, no president should be free to overturn an election against the will of the people, no matter what the conservative justices may believe.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says Democrats will introduce a bill to classify former President Donald Trump's efforts to subvert the 2020 election as unofficial acts. The move would strip Trump of criminal immunity the Supreme Court just granted to presidents. The White House says it's also considering how to respond to the court's unprecedented ruling. Meanwhile, Rhode Island Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is asking the Justice Department to appoint a special counsel to investigate Justice Clarence Thomas. Whitehouse says Thomas may have violated federal tax or ethics laws when he accepted luxury gifts from Republican megadonors.
If a justice isn't reporting income on his legally required financial disclosure, there's a good chance that something is amiss with his tax reporting as well.
He also wants the DOJ to investigate a $300,000 loan to Thomas that was forgiven. I'm Catherine Carley for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
A death toll from Hurricane Beryl is now at least 10, 9 in the Houston area, 1 in Louisiana. And the return of searing heat in Texas has deepened the misery of people still without power. More than 1.7 million homes and businesses in Texas still lack electricity as of this morning. State officials have faced questions over whether the power utility that covers much of the area had sufficiently been prepared. The death toll from extreme heat in the West is nearing 24. In the Bay Area, Santa Clara County officials are investigating a dozen deaths as heat-related, including 2 at a homeless encampment. 1 person's died in Sacramento from the heat, 2 in Southern California, including a woman incarcerated in Chowchilla Prison. The death toll from the heat in Oregon is now 5. A child in Arizona has died while in a car. Las Vegas is forecasting to hit a 5th consecutive day of triple-digit heat, record-breaking hot temperatures of 115 degrees. Climate activists rallied in San Francisco Tuesday to bring attention to the banks that are financing fossil fuels, the main contributor to climate change. Ada Shaheen reports.
A nationwide coalition has organized the Summer of Heat to put pressure on businesses and lawmakers to transition away from fossil fuels. Instead of going directly after those burning oil, gas, and coal, however, activists are targeting the money that supports those actors. Big 4 banking culprits: Citi, Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of America. Activists say together those banks have invested $1.5 trillion into fossil fuels in the past 8 years. Claudia McDonough, with 1,000 Grandmas, said Citi can shift investments to the renewable sector and earn just as much money.
The path is clear, but the pressure needs to keep mounting to convince the people who are stuck in the old ways.
In San Francisco, I'm Ata Shaheen, Pacifica Radio, KPFA.
Republican officials in Montana will ask the state Supreme Court today to overturn a landmark climate ruling in a lawsuit brought by young people. Last year's decision said state regulators must consider global warming emissions when approving oil, gas, and coal projects. Montana Republicans say emissions from the state's energy industry are insignificant and can't be blamed for climate change. I'm Christina Onestad reporting for Pacifica Radio.